Hello, my name is Kathy, and today I'll be continuing the introduction to the Irish Dance Tunes for All Harps book by Sylvia Woods. But before I do this, I wanted to let you know that I have a great many videos now on many different topics, and so I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easier to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. Very often when a musician buys a new book of music, they'll ignore the write-ups at the beginning of the book in favor of moving directly into the music itself. So, part of this introduction will correct this issue. To continue, this is the introduction by Danny Carnahan. What are jigs and reels? Jigs and reels and hornpipes are the three most common types of dance tunes played in Ireland. The number of beats per measure, the number of measures in a phrase, and the number of times through a tune were dictated by the steps and patterns of the dance. Nowadays, dance tunes are played as performance pieces as well as for dancers. This gives traditional musicians immense latitude in interpreting the tunes and choosing settings, tempos, and medleys. But it doesn't hurt to know the older, conventional approaches too. Any musician who wishes to play Irish music should make a point of watching dancers dance the tunes. While I can explain much about tempos and rhythms here, the subtleties of the tunes as they lead the dancers through their moves can best be understood from live performances. Dancers can also give you an inkling of how and why the tunes evolved. This knowledge can give you a clearer idea of how the styles you prefer developed and even perhaps where to take them next within the tradition. Jigs. A jig is a tune in 6/8 time, most easily counted out like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When counting your way through, try not to give the 4 beat too much emphasis. If you do, the 6-beat measure breaks into a pair of 3-beat phrases, making the tune sound choppy. Jigs can be played comfortably as slow as a dotted quarter note at metronome marking 100, or up to about a dotted quarter note at metronome marking 120. Slip jigs. A slip jig is in 9/8 time, like 1½ jigs. Slip jigs have been called jigs within jigs because they consist of 3 groups of 3 beats in each measure. The way to count it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Give slightly less emphasis to the 7 as you do the 1 downbeat. Tempos for slip jigs are the same as for the other jigs, which is metronome marking 100 to 120 per dotted quarter note. Reels. Reels are tunes in 4/4 time and are easily counted out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the downbeat getting the most emphasis. Comfortable tempos for reels range from a half note equals 92 to a half note equals 102 metronome marking. Hornpipes. Hornpipes also have 4 beats in each measure. The rhythm of a hornpipe is more deliberate than a reel, with more emphasis on the 3rd beat, and is given a strong loping gait by using slightly dotted rhythms. In a hornpipe, each beat is divided up into 1 long and 1 short note, counted out 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, with very short ands and with nearly equal 1s and 3 beats. Since the rhythm is a little choppier than your average reel, the tempo slows down accordingly to keep from sounding sloppy. A half note equals 68 to a half note equals 80, metronome marking. In some music books, you'll find hornpipes written straight, with no dotted notes at all. In these instances, you just have to know that the tune is a hornpipe and should have a dotted feel. Actually, neither way of writing hornpipes is exactly correct. The dotted notes should not be held as long as they would be in classical music, but should easily swing. The best way to get the correct feel for hornpipes is to listen to recordings of them. In American old-timey traditional playing, hornpipes and reels are often played almost the same, with similar tempos and straight rhythm. In your Irish settings, you will want to keep the two kinds of tunes clearly different. Rhythmic precision. When playing Irish dance tunes, it's extremely important to keep your rhythm exactly on the money. Sure, this is tough, but since you're trying to play tunes designed around another instrument, you have to work a little harder to assure that the tune retains its Irish feeling. Classical harp literature and even the classical-sounding carillon tunes and other parlor pieces often favored by folk harpers have a way of letting the rhythm flow up and down in a dreamy fashion. But dance tunes can't be played dreamily and still sound like dance tunes. Getting the dance tunes and dance tempos clearly in your head will help you develop your necessary internal metronome. And once the metronome is working, you are well on your way towards mastering the feel of Irish jigs, reels, and hornpipes. Tempos. In the last few generations, as jigs and reels drifted farther and farther from their necessary connection with the dances, musicians have been more free to choose how fast to play them when dancers aren't present. When playing dance tunes, it's extremely important to pick a tempo and stick to it throughout the piece. The dangers of rushing a tune are obvious, not the least of which is that you won't be able to play the tune. Dragging the tempo can also be just as annoying. Some phrases just sound sloppy and awkward when played too much slower than the original dance tempo. When playing with other musicians, there's a common urge to play everything too fast. Medleys have a funny way of gradually speeding up, and long medleys can really get out of hand. Many musicians play as fast as their technique allows them to move their fingers. This is all good and exciting, but I feel the ideal speeds for these tunes are somewhat slower. Medleys. There are uncounted ways to combine jigs and reels and hornpipes. Also, a tune in G major might go well with a tune in E minor, as the two keys are relative. Tension can be released in a medley by modulating up either a whole step, say from G to A, or up a fifth as from G to D, although of course this can be quite frustrating on the harp due to the necessary lever changes. Experimentation with different tune combinations can result in some surprisingly satisfying transitions that you may not have heard other musicians try. Using the tunes in this book, one common pairing of tunes is the Earl's Chair into Musical Priest, both of which are reels in B minor. The jig, Blarney Pilgrim, gives nicely right into Merrily Kiss the Quaker. Slip jigs are usually played with other slip jigs, but that shouldn't prevent you from throwing Rocky Road to Dublin in with some plain old ordinary jigs. Another although less common, it's not unheard of to pair a jig with a reel or vice versa, so you can feel free to try setting up a fast reel with a slower jig, or a jig with a hornpipe, or any other combination that suits you. An easy-going version of Off She Goes could go into a steady driving reel like The Waterfall, for instance. Again, these are only a few suggestions. You will almost certainly chance upon some good combinations yourself, and experimentation is the only way to find them. Playing fiddle tunes on the harp. The harp, as you have probably gathered, is not as well suited to play fiddle tunes as a fiddle is, nor is the harp historically the instrument first chosen to play these types of dance tunes. For centuries, jigs and reels have been written for and played on fiddles, flutes, whistles, and various bagpipes, and more recently even banjos, mandolins, and accordions. All these instruments have structural limitations which are quite different from those imposed on you by your harp. This means that ornamentation or runs or arpeggios that are easy and comfortable on another instrument may be either uncomfortable or next to impossible for you. This is not something to worry about. It just means that a few compromises must be made. Rather than trying to mimic a tenor banjo's fast triplets, or the single bow turns on the fiddle, or a curiously indefinite note on the Uilleann pipes, just work at hitting at the shape or feel of these ornaments. Or, sometimes more appropriately, when playing with other musicians, simply leave space in your setting, so whenever you do decide to muddy up a phrase or ornament by an ornament played by someone else, sometimes hinting at a note or ornament can be just as effective as playing it. What is an Irish music session? A lot of you have taken up the Celtic harp as a solitary instrument because the sound delights you, and the kind of music commonly played on a Celtic harp appeals to you somewhere deep down. But as much fun as it is to play the harp solo, it is equally pleasurable in a very different way to venture out and play with other instruments in sessions. What is a session? I hear you cry. A session is a gathering of Irish or Scottish or other varied Celtic musicians, each wielding his or her choice of traditional instrument and playing tunes as they pop into their heads, or as they find tunes they know in common. Usually sessions are dominated by lively dance tunes, including jigs and reels and hornpipes, like those in this book. You'll find sessions in pubs and bars and folk clubs and even in people's living rooms, regularly scheduled or whenever the spirit moves them to play. Sessions do not generally stipulate that one must be a flashy pro or possess a limitless repertoire in order to join in, and that's what makes them so much fun. Also, since the harp will often be drowned out by the other instruments, sessions provide a good opportunity for you to play without feeling like everyone is listening to you. By sitting in with many other musicians possessing varying levels of expertise, you can quietly build up both your repertoire and your confidence without playing in public. Listen before you play, but don't be shy. Feel free to play along with tunes you know. If you don't know the tune but can find the key, you might play chords in rhythm behind the others. The chordings provided for the tunes in this book give a good starting point for learning what chords fit with tunes. If you're unsure what chords are appropriate, you can always pedal along on the tonic, a D chord if the tune is in D. This is a similar effect to bagpipe drones in the ensemble and rarely sounds out of place as long as you don't overdo it. Like joining in any social setting that was there before you arrived, it helps to be polite. It is courteous to let different people start tunes and medleys from time to time. The role of tune starter is likely the role of dealer, the role of dealer in a card game. Everyone likes to be included. Since you play a relatively unusual and quiet instrument, you will generally not be a starter, but you'll probably find that they will ask you to play a solo from time to time as a change of pace. This is a great opportunity to perform airs, or carillon tunes, and other traditional pieces from your repertoire. Another nice thing to do in a session is to sit a tune out once in a while. When everyone plays all the time, the texture gets dense and the sameness of the sound can get tiresome. If you sit out for a while, the ensemble will appreciate the sound of the harp all the more when you join back in. How are tunes played in sessions? Though there are many ways to play tunes and to string them together in sessions, there are, though, a few conventions that are common throughout most Irish sessions, and these help the beginning session participant know what to expect. First, most tunes are played at least twice all the way through, including all repeats. Generally, a tune isn't played more than 4 times or so before someone gets bored with it, or thinks of another tune or medley to medley into. This is a comforting thing to know if you are at a session collecting tunes by ear or by tape recorder. You generally have one pass through the tune to decide whether or not to turn on your recorder or to listen for its shape, and start to get a handle on how to pick it out by ear. Another convention in sessions is that tunes are rarely played alone, but are instead strung together 2 or 3 or more in a row. After a while, in addition to listening to a tune as an individual entity, you'll find yourself listening to how to get into and out of it again. Whether a tune has a pickup or starts on the downbeat can determine what other tunes it can match up with easily. Here's another quick note which harpers particularly have to keep in mind. As often as not, tunes get strung together because the fiddler or banjo player happened to think of it as a split second before starting to play it. And so from time to time, you'll find yourself suddenly not tuned to the key everyone else is, furiously sawing away in. At the very least, you'll be scrambling for your sharping levers, if you have them, but not to worry. You can either pedal along with the appropriate drone notes or sit that one out and come in on another tune. Learning tunes by ear. Every musician picks up tunes at different rates of speed and with different degrees of sweating and cursing. Of course, there's no surefire, easy way to learn a tune by ear, but here is one suggestion on how you might approach the problem. Start out by listening to the whole tune rather than the notes that make it up. Listen to the tune's cycle all the way through and back to the beginning. Note whether it has two repeating parts, as most Irish dance tunes do, or if it has three or more. If you can tell what key it's in, fine, but don't worry about that right away. Instead, follow the rising and falling of the tune's phrases and arpeggios and scales before you start to plunk around on it. This is called listening for the shape of the tune. In addition to being a good way to remember a tune more easily later, getting the shape of a tune clear in your head will help you recognize other settings of the tune, even if they are quite different. Every tune you see has dozens of settings, different because of geographical distance, or the limitations of the instruments, or the sheer perseverance and ingenuity of the musician. But all settings will retain much the same shape and essence of the tune. So listen to see if a tune starts up high and dips down, or bubbles along in the middle, or changes key in midstream. After that, learning the tune notes for note can be much easier. You'll have a framework on which to place the notes, and you'll have a clearer idea of how to alter your version later without losing the essence of the tune. I have a great many videos now on many different topics, and so I've decided to make several different video playlists so that it's easy to find the videos of greatest interest. So please check out my playlist page. Well, that's it for now. To stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this free YouTube channel by clicking the red subscribe button right below this video. Take care.